Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I will be discussing my ranking of the Cosmere books by Brandon Sanderson. I have done this once before. I did this about a year ago, but I have since read some Cosmere, and I thought it was apt time to update my ranking. And I do want to point out that there are two Cosmere works that I have not yet read. I have not yet read Dawnshard, and I have also not read Edgedancer, which is one of the novellas in Arcanum Unbounded. And so I will not be discussing either of those here. I will probably get to these next year, probably. I have so many books in my TBR, I can't read everything. So after I've read both of these, I'll go back and do an updated ranking. But for now, I've read 13 Cosmere works, and I'm going to be ranking them from the worst to the best. I will be, for one, discussing just my opinions. If you love any of these and it's your favorite, that's wonderful. I actually, out of a scale of 10, I give every single Cosmere novel a 9 or more because I seriously love Brandon Sanderson's work. He's my favorite author of all time. I love his work. I can't get enough of it. But there are certain ones that I admit I like more than others. So that's what we'll be discussing here. So without further ado, let's begin with my number 13. And my number 13 is Oathbringer. Woo, the massive book. This is a book where I loved so much in it. I loved the whole stuff with Hoyd, and also known as Wit in this series. I really liked a lot of the stuff with Dalinar. Dalinar has the best backstory of any of the backstories we've gotten. But man, the ending of this book, it's like 250 pages of epic action. It feels like the last 250 pages are basically like Endgame, the Avengers Endgame. It feels like they're throwing everything into this battle, and you're just jumping around from viewpoint to viewpoint to viewpoint, and it just doesn't feel earned. We're only in book 3 out of 10, whereas when Brandon did this with the 350-page war sequence in Memory of Light, that was okay to me because that sequence was in the final book, and it was earned. We'd been building there for like decades at that point, and so it just felt like, whoa, why are we having so much battle? This is too big, I felt. So that's why this is my number 13. We'll go into my number 12, which is Bands of Mourning. Now, I don't have particularly a lot that I disliked about this book. I just don't remember too much from it. It just feels meh to me. There was a few sequences I really liked, but other than that, I don't really remember the central plot. And I'm super excited for The Lost Metal, which is coming out in November, but I don't love this book particularly because I just don't remember it. I need to go back and reread it probably before the other book comes out. I have so many books to read. So that's my number 12. It's the most meh book. Then we have Shadows of Self, which I really like. The twist in this book is amazing. It is a fantastic, superb twist. I also really like the action in this book. There's some fantastic action, and there's some good character growth with Waxilium, and a little bit with Wayne too. But Wax has a good sequence in this book that I really enjoyed. But I'm telling you, the twist in this book was superb. Was really well done. My number 10 is not a book I actually have a physical copy of necessarily, but it can be found in Arcanum Unbounded, and that is The Emperor's Soul. The Emperor's Soul was a novella that I read because it was at the library. I didn't have this book at the time, and I went and picked it up, and I was so impressed with how short the book is and how deep it was. The Emperor's Soul set in the world that Elantris is set in, and there's this girl who is basically forced to work on this project. I'm not sure how much I can give away without giving away a lot of the plot, but Brandon, he writes these epic 1,000-page epics, and then he writes a short 120-page story, and it proves that he can use an economy of words, and I was very impressed with the Emperor's Soul. So going into my number 9, I have Rhythm of War. This is the most recent book that I've read. I highly enjoyed it. I thought that the climax of Rhythm of War was much better than Oathbringer, but not as good as the first two books in the series. I thought that this book did some excellent character work with Shallan. I did not like the Shallan character work in Oathbringer that much, but I did like her character here. I am liking Kaladin more and more. Every book he gets better for me. And then we also have some other characters that I thought were really good in this book. What keeps this book from being as high as the others is that I just didn't care for Eshelai or Venli and their backstory. I just, that part he could have not had that at all in the book, and I would have loved it much more. It would have cut out about 120, maybe 150 pages. So that's Rhythm of War, newest release that I have. The next book, my number 8, is The Hero of Ages, the finale of the Mistborn trilogy. Again, this has an interesting twist, much like Shadows of Self does, that's really good, but I felt so connected to Vin and to Elend in this book, which is why I think it goes much higher than some of the other books that I've discussed. Also, the opening sequence in this book is just visual. Like, I can perfectly visualize it. It's so good. And Sazed has some of the best quotes in this book. And Spook actually has some great lines in this book as well. And so I really enjoy The Hero of Ages. So that's my number 8. Number 7 is another Mistborn book. It is The Well of Ascension. This book has a sequence in the middle that I really like. I really like the whole plot of this book. This is one of the Mistborn, probably the Mistborn book with overall the best plot of they're trying to build their new government and they're trying to determine, okay, should we be dictatorial here? Should we be more democratic? How do we balance everything? It is a very well-executed book with some excellent deeper themes about government and about marriage. There's some great discussion of marriage in this book. And also, it's just so entertaining, some of the humor in this book as well. Some of the side characters were really cool. So this is my number 7. We are really, at this point, getting into the best of the best. Like, I have so little negative to say about these books and so much positive to say. But my number 6 is The Alloy of Law. To me, this is the best Wax and Wayne book. It's the shortest novel in the Cosmere. And it's so impressive how much I attach to Wax in this book. And I just loved everything about this book. There's some excellent surprises. There's some excellent world building. There's some excellent political discussions. There's some excellent government discussions. It feels like Sherlock Holmes and Harry Dresden meshed into one character. And I thought it was just super entertaining. And there's some great stuff with some of the other characters. Like, I can't get into all that, but this book really enjoyed. Number 5 is going to be the one that's probably the biggest surprise for people, which is The Way of Kings. This book, I really enjoyed it the first time I read it, and I've been rereading it, and I've been having a blast with it. And the problem that this book has that some of the later books that I'll discuss don't is that the world building is really complex here. And it's very hard to follow. But it's still so entertaining. Kaladin has such a cool backstory here. And also the front story, the main plot is just so good in Way of Kings. And the ending of Way of Kings, one of the best Cosmere endings. It's just so epic, so well produced, so well thought out, and I had a blast reading it, despite how long it was. So that's my number 5. Getting into my number 4 is Mistborn. This is so much. The last chapter of this book is worth the price of the book itself for me. I loved what happened at the end of this book. But the whole book, the way that you are introduced to Kelsier and to Vin and to Elend and the way that they relate to each other, and the way that Ellen starts developing feelings for Vin, and Vin doesn't really know how she feels towards Ellen, and it's so well done. It's so superb. This is like a blend of YA and adult, and boy does it get the best of both worlds. If all YA authors wrote like this, I think that we would be in a much better state for YA. So, and the magic system is good as well. My number 3 is Words of Radiance. This is the best of the Stormlight Archive books for me. Has the best climax for me. The Shallan backstory is not necessarily the best backstory, but it's executed well. But Kaladin's story here, he goes through such an important journey in this book that I was so impressed with. And then we also have some great stuff with Dalinar and Navani in this book. That's so good. You have some great scenes with Szeth, and of course you have some of the prologue in this book, as prologue in every book has been really excellent. And I think I was like pumping my fist, so much throughout this book, which doesn't happen when I'm reading books often, but it did with this book. I felt finally things are happening that I wanted to happen since the beginning of Way of Kings. So this book, top tier Cosmere and top tier Stormlight Archive for me. It's going to be very hard for the Stormlight Archive to top the emotional highs that this book had for me. So, oh boy, that stack's getting a little big. My number 2, this is the book that started much lower and has slowly risen to the top for me, and is now my number 2, and that is Warbreaker. I love Warbreaker. It has probably my favorite magic system in the Stormlight, or not in the Stormlight, in the Cosmere. Boy, all the terms are getting confusing. It is my favorite magic system in the Cosmere. It has such superb character stuff. The romances in this book between Ciri and Susebron, and then also the kind of it's not a romance, it's like a tension-based relationship between Vivenna and Vasher. And then, of course, Nightblood is hilarious in this book. And then also, I love the ending, I love the build-up, I love the twist, I love the way that he's been prepping this book from the beginning, and I love the way that this book connects to everything now. I think this book is really good, and in my next reread, it might become my favorite because it's been growing for me, but it probably won't. Now we're getting to my number 1, and you're probably thinking, wait a second, the only one left, how can that possibly be his favorite? And I'm surprised that it is also my favorite, but this is Elantris. It is not only my favorite Cosmere novel, this is my favorite novel of all time. I know that's controversial to say, but man, do I have feelings with this book. The political discussions, the character growths of Raoden and Serene, the emotional sequences in this, the way you see Raoden start with nothing in Elantris and build an empire from there is just so impressive. The questions about religion and about faith, the questions about government and about governing people, the questions about literature, the questions about scholars versus hard workers, the questions about purpose in life, all of them are excellently explored in this book. And it ranks at the bottom of so many people's lists. And it's so painful to me to see that because this book doesn't have much action. It really doesn't. But what it lacks in action, it makes up in deeper themes that I just love. I've reread this book like 3 or 4 times. I love it. I could reread it at any point and still keep loving it. I recommended this book to so many people. It's just that good. I absolutely love it. It is my number 1 favorite Cosmere and number 1 favorite novel of all time. And boy, is it going to be hard to beat this one day because, it's so good. So, those are my ranking of the 13 Cosmere books that I've read. If you've read the Cosmere, let me know your ranking down below. Let me know, do you agree with any of my lists? Are you surprised? Did I rank Elantris too high? Did I rate Way of Kings too low? Let me all know all that down in the comments section. I have lots of Cosmere and other fantasy book and just book-related videos on the channel and a lot more coming soon. So until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.